I truly believe that, real estate is one of the strongest investments.
One of my old business partners called it tuition.
I like that.
When you make less money or whatever the case is, because you're paying for it, but you're learning.
Explain to them, expect to be broke the first 2 years.
It showed who bought and sold a house on a blockchain. You would know who owned the title previously.
Kind of take away the service that you provide.
It's possible. ChatGPT can be very, very useful, for a variety of things. Welcome. We got Chris Miller from Atlantic Coast Mortgage. Great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Great to be here.
How you doing?
I'm good.
You're good. You're good, except for the market.
It's a little slow. Got a lot of time on my hands right now.
It makes sense. We've been working together for a long time. Great to have you on the show. So we're close to December. Joyous time of the year. Joyous market.
Yeah.
I know, but in all seriousness, I think one of the things we're going to chat about today is this is a hard market, right? And especially in your world, loan officer. So, I assume people are dropping out of the industry. Are you seeing that a lot yet? Is that something, tell me what you're seeing with just, are people coming into the industry because it's struggling? They think there's opportunity around the corner? Are people leaving the industry? What are you seeing?
Well, so I was actually at a networking event just last week, and I met 2 real estate agents that just chose to get in the market right now. And, it's hard to say if I've, seen more people come in, more people leave, but I think what's important is just to embrace that, this business, there's waves, right? You got to embrace the waves. And I'm sure with it being slow, you're definitely going to see people leaving because it's tough.
Yeah. No, I've talked to some people who are like, yeah, I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. And I'm done.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is, you guys have a stressful job. Right. Yeah. You get fought on rate a lot. And even no matter how good your service is, what would you say is the hardest part about your job?
Just trying to stay creative and dealing with, these new objections from, these consumers. I think, with a high rate environment, you got the media putting out a lot of information, and now consumers, it seems like they come to us maybe not as trustworthy, or they're a little more skeptical. So, just making them feel as comfortable as possible and trying to navigate, the high rates and getting creative on how you can help them. And, the industry is always evolving, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always changing. You always have to be ready to adapt.
Yeah, and on that front, the creativity front. So, what are you doing on the creative side of things in a harder market and with skeptical customers?
Yeah, well, of course, it's going to depend on every individual situation. I think what's important for people to know, if you have a borrower that might be tight on money, they might not realize that you can negotiate, that the seller pay a portion of the closing costs. And, that can save them quite a bit of money and having little impact to their monthly payment.
Sure.
So I'll try to walk them through, those scenarios and just show them there's different ways that we can structure the loan. Mm-hmm. And, putting numbers in front of them, I think just helps motivate them and just really just move the needle, right?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I know we were chatting a little while ago. We were talking about short-term rentals, long-term rentals, pros and cons. I think you have one at Ocean City, right? Short-term rental?
I do.
Tell me about that process. How did you find it? Because actually, some of my friends were looking into that, and it's such a saturated market. Right. How do you find this property?
Yeah, so I bought this condo in October 2021. And I had known for some time that I wanted to jump into the short-term market and just, see how that goes. I have 2 long-term rental properties. And originally I was looking in Dewey, and, I came to realize that Dewey was substantially more expensive. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was because it's more of a family-oriented town or what the case was. But I had been to Dewey a handful of times. I had never been to Ocean City other than maybe one time. So I didn't know the area. But I figured, with there being the amenities of the beach and, the bars and golf, let's jump into it. And bought a place, October 2021. And I'm learning that it's much more time consuming than the long-term rentals, but it's a lot of fun. And the times that it's not rented out, I have the ability to go out there with my family and friends. And
so how often are you able to make it on a yearly basis? How often do you go up there and use it yourself?
Well, so with Ocean City, that's more seasonal. And in the summer months is when I'm bringing the most revenue. So I'm finding myself spending more time out there, in the fall, October, November. In October, you're getting weekends that are 70 degrees. And I've realized that there's a lot of great golf out there. So
where do you play?
I would say my favorite course is Rum Point. And then you have Links at Lighthouse. So for anyone that is familiar with that area, I'm sure they know those courses.
Yeah, nice. I heard you haven't joined the 79 Watch Club yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm still working on that. And it's funny you say that because a lot of my buddies would say, oh, this guy hasn't even sniffed in the 70s. I did shoot an 81, though, earlier this year, so that felt great.
It only took me 20 years, and it happened recently, and it took me so long that I actually bought the website 79watch.com, which you should check out. Amazing house down in Pinehurst, North Carolina, talking about short-term rentals. That has been an interesting journey for us. So, get this house down there. It's awesome. We actually got it in the very beginning of COVID, new construction. People were nervous about the market. And so listed for $1 million, we got it for $875. It's been a great property. The one thing I did notice, though, is we brought in a lot of revenue. And we're like, oh, man, we're going to have this great cash flow business. And, it's amazing how much of this cash gets spent on just repairs or management companies or additional costs you just never thought of. That's the one thing about short-term. It's like, I think it's definitely worth it still, but our pro formas, unfortunately, are not resulting in what we thought they would.
Yeah.
So I'd like to mix up the little questions from time to time. So what's the worst advice, if you can remember, that you've ever been given in your business career?
I can't say off the top of my head the worst advice I've given, but I will say, with the few companies I've been with, I've seen different styles of management. Mm-hmm. I've seen managers kind of have that pit bull approach, and I would say that's maybe not the worst advice I've been given, but maybe the worst style of management. Mm-hmm. I just think, what's important is, you want to create an environment that people enjoy coming to. Some of the managers I've worked with in the past, they might not have had that approach. I've also worked under great management, people that have motivated me and really helped me elevate, in my career. But, that whole aggressive style, it's just not my thing.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Someone out there, I do think there's opportunity in tough markets. So we were talking about, should you get into the market now? Should you get out of the market? Look, there's a burnout's a real thing. So I understand those people are like, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years, I'm out. Right. But on the other side of it, I do think it's an interesting time right now for people to get into the market and get, looking at becoming a loan officer. What advice would you have for someone that's just getting in to the industry?
Well, I think it's important to know that, there's no overnight success, right? Some of the folks that I've chatted with that have just jumped in, I'll explain to them, expect to be broke the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And, that's really the time that you're going to learn, how to, whether you're becoming a loan officer, how to structure a loan, how to properly communicate to individuals on expectations and, and things that your referral partners are looking for to just, help facilitate the transaction. But just know that, if you're looking to jump into this business, look at it more so as a long-term career, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to be an overnight success. And, definitely look for mentors. The first few years that I was involved, I had great mentors. And I remember the companies that I would join, I would look for the top producer. Mm-hmm. And I would just pick their brain because, I want to eventually become, one of them.
I 100% agree with that. A friend of mine just reached out. She wants to become a real estate agent. I was like, find the best teams in your area. There is true value there. They're large teams. They're successful. There's a path of history, the history of success. It's learning from those people who've done it before.
No doubt.
Get over the concept of I can make more commission. You're going to learn. You're going to. It's tuition. We call it. One of my old business partners called it tuition.
I like that.
When you make less money or whatever the case is, because you're paying for it, but you're learning.
Yeah, you're benefiting in other aspects, right?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. we met you through Mike Madigan.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Mike. Yeah,
one of our top salespeople. You guys have done a good job of constantly being out networking. I think it's a good example of just relationship marketing and networking. Both of you guys have done a great job of getting out there, being in front of people consistently.
Yeah.
What are your advice on that in terms of like networking, pros and cons? When is it worth your time? When is it not? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's extremely important. It's that it goes back to that whole saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, even though I think you obviously know some. But, and it even goes back to, the Airbnb, right? Like, I think having resources and knowing people that you can refer to other people and just, using their knowledge to basically, benefit whatever the situation is. Whether it's, a contractor, a handyman, a plumber, anyone in the industry, someone that knows title work. And if you need to have a question for an attorney, you're not going to know who to go to unless you go out and network and meet these individuals.
So the market's tough right now, and, different lenders are coming out with creative programs. What are you seeing that makes sense, that doesn't make sense? What are you guys looking at?
So, of course, it seems like everyone's talking about, your 2-1 buy down.
Explain that to the people that don't know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically a problem solver for a short period of time. For the first year of your 30-year term, your interest rate is 2% below the market rate. So if, we're quoting 7.5% today, for that first year, you're looking at 5.5%.
Right.
And then the second year, you're looking at 6.5%. And that can be, a significant amount of savings, and can be the difference of someone, living comfortably with that mortgage payment. And the whole idea is that you'll have the opportunity to refinance, of course, within those 2 years or shortly after. So getting creative there, using the seller credit that I touched on earlier, whether, a lender has an adjustable rate mortgage product, which we have,
the 2-to-1, are there fees to that? Or,
Great question. Yeah. So that does have to come from a seller credit. So that has to be negotiated. And it's depending on the sales price, it's typically about 2.5%. The seller has to pay that. And then that's applied towards the savings for the first 2 years.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
It's funny when you hear people, it seems like everyone's talking about, you can refinance in the future. And, the big objection to that is, well, Chris, what if rates never come down? Well, guess what? If they never come down, you're getting the lowest rate that it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if you can manage and you're capable, I truly believe that, real estate is one of the strongest investments.
I think that's a good point right there, which is, if rates keep going up, then congrats, you locked in at the lowest that was available, right?
Of course.
And many people think about that. And the other thing is, yes, people are, we're all, hey, what happened recently, right? Oh, we had 3% rates, yeah. I mean, but I do think human behavior is people get used to the circumstances around them. And so it's been a year and a half, and rates are at a certain point. People understand this is the scenario we're in.
Exactly.
And we have to, if we want to own, we need to do that.
Right.
And yes, it's expensive, but real estate has proven itself over a long term to be one of the best investments ever made.
Right. So. And, what's interesting too is, historically or statistically, the life of a mortgage is no more than 7 to 8 years, typically. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is, when they're looking to buy, you're likely not going to be in that property forever.
Sure.
Right? It depends on the individual you're chatting with, but if you're looking for long-term wealth, just know that you may not be in that property forever, and you can either rent it out. You just have options.
Yeah, sure. And if we have limited inventory, there's a likelihood that even if rates go up, your house is going to be appreciating. And so, yes, it might be, wow, I'm spending so much more now than I would have at a 3%, but you have an asset that's appreciating.
And the thing is, location is so important, right? Luckily, in the market that we're in such a sought-out area. There's so much job opportunity here. So I feel very confident that the properties that I own, they're going to just continue to appreciate. even in a bad market, even if it's flat, it's still long term.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm seeing, it seems like a lot of people are talking about the whole chat GPT, I think it's GPT and AI. Do you see that having any huge impact to our industry? And if so, what?
Yeah, I think that ChatGPT can be very, very useful, for a variety of things. So number one, I think it can be useful for like sales and prospecting.
Okay.
So I think there's some opportunities out there where you might have, like I know some people, they answer every Zillow call at all times. They'll answer like Zillow leads like all day long, right?
Right.
And so I think there's an opportunity there too, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text message, where there can be some communication to make sure it's a true lead and not kind of a spammer. Right. Which would, I think, if you're, let's just say people are responding to leads by text, they can ask questions for you, in an automated way that's like getting real information to make sure it's worth your time to continue to communicate. I think I've also talked to some other title company owners. I'm in a mastermind of title company owners across the country. We kind of share ideas. What do we see in the market? And they've created a lot of automated AI responses to get information out to help answer quick questions for consumers, for clients of theirs. So I think there's some interesting automations that are very interesting that will like make people's life a little easier, which is a good thing too. On the AI front, definitely on a marketing perspective, some of the stuff is unbelievable out there. Like, hey, design me a flyer that has trees in it and does, has two people talking, whatever. It just pops it out.
Done in seconds.
It's done in seconds. Yeah. So it's definitely a real thing. It's going to mix up the industry. It can be used for sales, marketing, customer service. On that front, how do real estate agents use it? Probably on the marketing front.
Yeah.
Maybe on the listing photo options to add a little bang to that. So, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all plays out. Now, there's always, for the title industry, people have said, oh, blockchain is here. You guys are going to be eliminated. I'll tell you my thoughts on that is, number one, to get all the transactions on a blockchain is going to take 100 years. It's going to take a long time to do that, in my opinion. Also,
real quick.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with blockchain.
Yeah. So blockchain, basically, it's like, so if you think of blockchain like crypto, if you do a transaction on crypto, it's on the blockchain. So there's no way to like fake it.
So it's almost like in the cloud.
Yeah. In a sense, it's in the cloud. It's a transaction that happened and you can't like forge it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so the same concept would be if it showed who bought and sold a house on a blockchain, you would know who owned the title previously. And who now owns it now. There's no way to kind of forge that.
And that would kind of take away the service that you provide.
It's possible. That would be the concept. Now, the thing is that, I think a lot of people don't know is, yes, we provide title insurance, we clear title issues, but we also hold money in escrow. And in like California, escrow is a business, title is a business. They're actually separate. Here and most of the states that we're in, we do both of them. On any given transaction, I would say there's probably 100 questions that get asked, right? Like from the agents, from the consumers, from the lenders, back and forth.
100.
Yeah, I would say 100 questions over the course of 30 days, right? And those questions could be, how do I get my EMD to you? How do I do this? So there's so much communication.
Yeah.
I think there's a role for our business, no matter how good the automation gets done or how good the technology gets, because you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars of people's money. And, we have a full-time IT company to make sure wire fraud doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We are, there's so much communication and questions going that I don't see that ever eliminating, title companies, let's say.
Or at least we'll be retired by that time.
So that would be kind of my thought on a little bit more like blockchain AI stuff.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. Every individual, they have a different story. It's amazing. I feel the 10 years I've been doing this, I'll get a new question almost every other day.
Like the lawsuits, the NAR lawsuit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the NAR lawsuit?
Yeah, I know, I would say, I don't know all the specific details.
Right.
I think that, transparency is key in all situations when you're dealing with compliance and you're dealing with these lawsuits. So, it sounds like just more clear communications, getting people to, potentially every buyer seller sign contracts that is very clear and what's being paid. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was chatting with some agents about the matter, and apparently it all came about because there was a transaction somewhere in Missouri, and the client was an attorney, and on the day of closing, he noticed that he was having to pay the buyer's agent commission.
Yeah.
And he felt like he wasn't disclosed that information, which I'm shocked that they were able to win the case, knowing that all the agents we work with, they have disclosures that go out. So it's like, that had to have been disclosed to him. And like you mentioned, I don't know all the details, but I just know that some agents are concerned that it'll have an impact to buyer representation, and if the buyer will be responsible for paying their agents commissions. And I mean, there's still so much information to be revealed. I can't imagine it'll have any type of immediate impact. Yeah. But I think that would be bonkers if the buyer had to pay their agent commissions. And, that'll take away from a market that could be approaching that seller's property, right? There's been many clients that I've worked with that, either take advantage of a VA loan program where it's 100% financing, and they don't have that additional 2.5%, 3% after closing. To think that they have to pay, their closing costs to the lender, the title company, to help facilitate that transaction, and then for the seller to expect them to pay more, it's just, that will impact them.
It will definitely impact the industry, how things are done. I remember I used to live in San Diego 20 years ago, and they had a lot of 1% only, and they're like, we're going to change the industry. What I find interesting is 20 years later, people still, will pay full commissions for great agents and people that can get their house sold at higher prices. And, if you're great at what you do, you deserve to be paid for that, And so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes up in the real estate industry. But, there's no doubt that whether it's government regulations, people are looking at the industry, and, there's shakeups all the time. Yeah. And it's, how do you pivot and figure out what to do with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not as old as I am, or younger. Must be nice. But in terms of, a lot of the younger generation, you guys are doing social media. You've got video strategies. Do you find those tactics useful in, as being a loan officer?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I can certainly improve on my social media game. I think it's important to put content out there, and educate the consumer. When it comes to Instagram and Facebook, a lot of how I approach, those platforms is I want everyone on there who follows me to at least know what I do. Mm-hmm. I might not put out as much content as I should be, but at least they know what I do. So when that time comes, they can reach out. And I think social media, it's huge. I've earned, clients that way. Yeah. So I need to improve on that. Maybe I need to set up my own podcast and bring partners on there.
Maybe I like it. I can tell you about we have a playbook ready for you. I'm gonna see it.
There we go.
Networking, right? It's it is a hit and miss situation. So I've gone to some things where there's 2 people in an entire event for it's on a weekend. I've given up the weekend saying, that was a bad decision. Do you have a networking gone bad story? And where you might have put a lot of time and effort, and then it just was a complete dud or ridiculous.
Well, you're completely right about the hit or miss, right? It's a numbers game, and that's why you just have to constantly be networking, because you can leave an event thinking to yourself, wow, I got nothing out of that. Let's see, there was one opportunity. It was actually a broker's open, and I felt honored to get the invitation to help host this broker's open. And, there was probably 25 agents that showed up, and prior to going to this broker's open, without me even thinking about it, I had allergies, and I had taken a Benadryl. Right. And it wasn't the non-drowsy Benadryl. So, I show up to this broker's open, and as I'm driving there, I'm thinking, well, why am I so sleepy? I'm so tired right now. I'm not in, I'm not in that social mood I need to be in.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me that I had taken this drowsy Benadryl, and I know that's probably a weak excuse for my networking abilities at that time, but I probably had maybe 2 conversations of the 25 agents.
Hey, yeah, read the label. Read the label. That's the Lardies, right? That's a big deal. Drowsy versus non-drowsy. I like it and stuff.
Right.
We used to do sport and social. I am a sport and social club in San Diego, and you would show up to these events, and you'd bring your tent. You'd set up the booth.
Yeah.
So hey, there's gonna be this event. There's gonna be 200 people there. Like I remember going to one, and there was literally I was the only one. It was like no one came to this event. It's like at a certain point, I think I gave it a chance. But and it's actually talk about deflating, right? It's like, man, I put all this effort in, I'm giving up a weekend, I'm doing whatever, and there's nothing that comes from it. And that's where the grind comes from. You need to know, you just got to keep doing it. And actually sometimes they work. I actually went to an event, and I don't go to as many events anymore, but I went to an event a couple weeks ago. It was a conference. And, randomly met a guy who's good friends with my good friend out in California who I actually went to last week and saw. So, and now we're working together. You never know.
Exactly.
Right? And you just got to put in the time, and you just got to know sometimes it's not worth your time, but eventually it pays off, right?
Yeah, there's been huge, positive outcome from networking events. I'd say a lot of the people I work with now are mostly from networking.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy. It's good seeing you. By the way, I do know why I called you Chris Harris. 2 of my good friends growing up, Chris Harris.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, well.
And so, just...
You got a Chris Lowe now.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Great seeing you. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought we could do this.
That was awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep.